All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon and The Blackest Heart, both books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing Deathstalker Rebellion, book number 2 in Simon R. Green's magnificent, epic space opera series, and I got all of them right here. Maybe you saw my review of Deathstalker, book number 1. I did this review about 2 years ago. Now I'm to book 2, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more to go. So there's 8 books in the series, and this series is seriously one of the most fucking dope series I have ever read. It's one of my favorite science fiction series of all time. It is nothing but action and adventure. Now let's start first by just talking about the series as a whole and the way that it looks on your shelf. I mean, I've got all the books here, and the publisher did a great job of publishing them all so they look spectacular on the shelf together. That's all the spines facing out. Looks like they all belong together, right? And they all have covers done by an unknown artist. I don't know who it was, but these covers are all cool. I'm sure someone out there might know who the artist is. I looked and they're not listed in the books at all, but those covers are seriously killer, and they all have the same artist do the covers, and they just look great. So just on an aesthetic level, this book is off to a great start. They look sharp on the shelf. Now, I also have all the audible.com, where I have all these on Audible. So I was listening to these on audible.com. The narrator is Gilbert Jackson. He does a spectacular job if you want to get the Audible versions. So, here we go. What's this about? Well, it's this. I don't know how to explain this series, because I can tell Simon R. Green took whatever idea crossed his mind at the time, and he threw it into this series, because it is weird, wild stuff. This space opera, this is a strange and twisted and quirky space opera, just set on a galaxy-wide world building. I mean, the world building is just spans star after star after star, you know, star system after star system, different creatures and aliens and cool things coming in and out. There's let's just go through some of the cool things that are in this. High-tech swordplay, warp drive, faster than light travel. There's lots of daring do. Lots of daring do gladiator matches, space battles, wry banter between the characters. There's mobsters, there's drama of the mobsters. It's part Sopranos, part Battlestar Galactica, part Star Wars, part Guardians of the Galaxy. There's clone leggers, there's elves, it's part fantasy. There's aliens with wear battle armor that's indestructible. There's cybernetic creatures and people and half men, half machines. There's schoolgirls. There's girls, and there's even an army of girls in schoolgirl outfits that just kick ass, much like in Kill Bill. You remember the mace-wielding schoolgirl that marched down the stairs and kicked old, what's-her-name's ass? Can't remember. The girl that was trying to kill Bill. What was that actress's? Uma Thurman. Here we go. That's the tip of the iceberg. I can't even mention all the ideas packed into this little tiny... This series has got so much going for it. So much science fiction deliciousness that you just have to read it right now, this minute, and it's all fun. It's action-packed. There's not a dull moment in the story. Owen Deathstalker, he's our main character, and his traveling companion Hazel d'Arc. Now, a lot of the stuff, I'm not going to talk, I don't want to spoil book 1 for you, so I'm just going to kind of mention the different characters and kind of what they're up to. But we start with them right after book 1. I mean, this goes from book 1 to book 2. It's just like, that one ends, this one starts the next day later. And they are just, they're kind of like going from they're fleeing something that's chasing them from book one. I don't want to tell you. And there's some they've got an army of augmented men that they're kind of going and Owen, these augmented men consider Owen Deathstalker to be their redeemer, so they're kind of following them. Also, they've got these other allies that are sort of in their group, and that's Jack Random, who's a he's been a professional rebel his whole life. There's Ruby Journey, who's a bounty hunter who was kind of latched onto their journey. Tobias Moon is also one of these augmented men that sort of follows them around. Those are the people that are kind of like in the Owen Deathstalker portion of the story, which is like one of the dopest things you're ever going to read in science fiction. Plus, we've got all these other things. We've got these mobster families that we follow. We've got empresses and lords and kings, like Giles, the first warrior prime. He's also the inventor of a thing called the Dark Void device, which I won't get into. There's High Lord Dram, who is the bodyguard of Empress Lionstone. And the High Lord Dram is just a badass character. Captain Silence and Investigator Frost, they were some of the first characters you met in the first Deathstalker book, and they suffered a huge sort of setback in that book, and they are still trying to redeem themselves in this book. But Captain Silence, he's a starship captain, sort of a fallen starship captain. Investigator Frost has sort of become his friend, and they work together. Valentine Wolf. Okay, now we get into the mobster families, like the politics of this story, where we've got the Wolf clan, the Summerisle clan, the Campbell clan, and the main and all these clans have all these different people that are in the clans that we get to know. But the kind of the important ones are Valentine Wolf, who's sort of this crazy pale-faced albino kind of like drug addict character that just secretly can just take care of himself. He's like a cat. He's like very deceptive. It's like people look at him and they think he's sickly, kind of like Doc Holliday in Tombstone. But then he really kicks ass, right? And then we've got Kit Summerisle, who's also known as Kid Death. So that's, he's a badass. So we've got Valentine Wolf, Kit Summerisle / Kid Death. And these guys, all of these people, by the way, all these people I mentioned, none of them like each other. So whenever they're in the vicinity of each other, just mayhem just ensues. And then we've also got Finley Campbell, who is the masked gladiator. Like there's gladiator fights in this. There's a big gladiator arena on one of the planets. I think it's Golgotha is the planet with the that might be wrong. I can't remember what planet it is. But a massive gladiator arena that all of the mobsters and all of the politicians show up to watch these gladiator matches. And there's this guy, the masked gladiator. Nobody knows who he is because he wears a mask. Well, it turns out that he's actually the son of one of the mobster leaders, and his name's Finley Campbell. And everybody thinks he's just this weak-ass little bee, but he's like the most badass gladiator behind the scenes. And then there's Mater Mundi, the mother of all souls, and which brings up all the religious conflict, the political conflict, the mobster conflict, everything, like literally everything that Simon R. Green ever thought of in his life to throw into a story. He just threw caution to the wind, and he's like, I'm going to put it in the story. I'm going to throw it at the story. I'm going to fling it at the story like Spider-Man flinging a web. Just whoosh, and it'll stick. It sticks. This thing that sticks in the story, and it all makes sense. It's just like there's so much coolness in it. I've read a lot of science fiction, folks, and I can't tell you how much badassery is in these books. They're the best. And I haven't even mentioned some of the other characters I like Toby and Flynn. There's actual war journalists. There's like war correspondents that report on all of these things. And then there's Gregor and Evangeline Shrek. There's so many great female characters that kick ass. There's so many male characters. There's alien characters. There's Catholic schoolgirl characters that kick ass. Everybody that shows up in this book is an ass kicker of one way or another. And I've read these before several times, and I know that eventually most every character comes across every other character in some sort of epic fucking battle. And it's just absolutely spectacular. Another 10 out of 10. Every one of these books. I'm going to read and review all of them, but just know right now They are all 10s out of 10s. It's just that good. And if you haven't read them, you've got to read them. Trust me, I have not yet recommended these books to a science fiction fan who hasn't just absolutely loved them.